To price electrical work, there are a couple methods to consider. The first method is dollars per opening. Calculate the total number of electrical openings, including outlets, switches, lights, and so on. Set a price for each opening based on the type and complexity of the work involved. The second method is square footage. Measure the square footage of the living space affected by the electrical work. Set a price per square foot based on the scope of work, material costs, and labor rates. There are several factors to consider. Firstly is the size and complexity of the house. A larger house with multiple rooms will require more time and materials. Secondly, what is the condition of existing wiring? If the wiring is old or damaged, it will require more extensive work. Thirdly, local labor rates are needed. Electrical labor rates vary depending on location and experience level. Fourthly, the cost of materials. The cost of materials such as wire, conduit, and boxes should be factored in. For a small house with 2 bedrooms and 1 bath, dollars per opening is a more accurate and manageable pricing method. This allows differentiation between the costs of different types of openings and adjusts the price based on the complexity of the work involved. For example, consider having the following openings: outlets at 20 at a cost of $20, switches at 10 at a cost of $15, lights at 8 at a cost of $12, ground fault circuit interrupter outlets at 4 at a cost of $25, smoke detectors at 2 at a cost of $18. The total price would be 20 times $20 plus 10 times $15 plus 8 times $12 plus 4 times $25 plus 2 times $18, which equals $10–12. This estimate assumes average labor rates and material costs. Adjust the prices accordingly based on those factors. Some other things to keep in mind are, firstly, local codes and regulations ensure the work meets all applicable National Electrical Code, or NEC, and local codes, including requirements for arc fault circuit interrupters, or RF-size smoke detectors, and grounding. Secondly, the type of wiring. Determine the type and gauge of wire needed for each circuit based on the amperage requirements and distance. Common types include non-metallic sheath cable, or NM cable, also known as ROMIX, and electrical metallic tubing, or EMT conduit. Thirdly, the panel upgrade. Evaluate the existing electrical panel to ensure it has sufficient capacity for the new circuits. If not, a panel upgrade may be necessary. Fourthly, the rough-in wiring. Install the wiring, boxes, and conduit before the drywall is installed. This includes running the wires through the walls and ceilings and connecting them to the appropriate boxes. Fifthly, device installation. Install the outlets, switches, lights, and other electrical devices after the drywall is installed. This includes connecting the wires to the devices and mounting them in the boxes. Sixthly, the circuit testing. Test all circuits to ensure they are working properly and meet the NEC requirements. This includes checking for proper voltage, amperage, and grounding. Seventhly, the inspection. Schedule an inspection with the local electrical inspector to ensure the work meets all applicable codes. Eighthly, documentation. Keep detailed records of all work performed, including wiring diagrams, material lists, and inspection reports. This will be helpful for future maintenance and repairs. Now let's talk more in detail about some of these other points, specifically on the types of wire. For general lighting in receptacle circuits, 14/2 or 12/2 non-metallic sheath cable, or NM cable, is commonly used. The first number, 14 or 12, indicates the gauge of the wire, and the second number, 2, indicates the number of current carrying conductors plus a ground wire. For larger appliances such as ranges and dryers, 10/3 or 8/3 non-metallic sheath cable, or NM cable, is required. These cables contain 2 hot wires, a neutral wire, and a ground wire. When running wire through conduit, use individual conductors such as THHN or THWN wire. These wires are available in a variety of gauges and colors. Understanding circuit breakers is critical. Circuit breakers protect electrical circuits from overloads and short circuits. Select the appropriate size circuit breaker for each circuit based on the amperage rating of the wiring and the load it will be serving. For example, a 15 amp circuit breaker is typically used for lighting in receptacle circuits with 14 gauge wire, while a 20 amp circuit breaker is used for circuits with 12 gauge wire. Ground fault circuit interrupters, or GFCIs, are required in areas where there is a risk of electric shock, such as bathrooms, kitchens, and outdoor locations. Arc fault circuit interrupters, or RFCIs, are required in bedrooms and other areas where there is a risk of fire caused by arcing faults. Now, here are some more considerations for outlets. Install outlets according to the NEC requirements. Typically, outlets should be spaced no more than 12 feet apart along walls. GFCI outlets are required in bathrooms, kitchens, and outdoor locations. Tamper-resistant outlets are recommended in homes with young children. For switches, install switches at convenient locations such as near doorways. Three-way switches are used to control lights from two different locations. Dimmers can be used to adjust the brightness of lights. Now, here are some considerations for lighting. Select light fixtures that are appropriate for the room and the intended use. Install recessed lighting, track lighting, and pendant lighting to create different lighting effects. Use energy-efficient light bulbs such as light-emitting diodes or LEDs to save energy and money. For smoke detectors, install smoke detectors on every level of the home and in each bedroom. Interconnect the smoke detectors so that if one detector sounds, they all sound. Test the smoke detectors regularly to ensure they are working properly. For appliance circuits, dedicated circuits are required for large appliances such as ranges, dryers, and air conditioners. These circuits should be sized according to the appliance's amperage requirements. 4-wire connections are required for ranges and dryers to provide a separate neutral and ground wire. For the electrical panel, ensure the electrical panel is properly sized for the home's electrical load. Label all circuits clearly to make it easy to identify them in the future. Keep the electrical panel accessible for maintenance and repairs. Grounding is an important safety measure that helps to protect against electric shock. All electrical circuits and equipment should be properly grounded according to the NEC requirements. Use a ground fault circuit interrupter, or GFCI, to protect against ground faults. Here are some other steps to doing electrical work safely. Always turn off the power to the circuit before working on it. Use insulated tools to avoid electric shock. Wear safety glasses to protect your eyes. Follow all NEC and local codes. If you are not comfortable working with electricity, hire a qualified electrician. More details on the National Electrical Code, or NEC. The NEC is a set of standards for safe electrical installations. It is updated every 3 years. It is important to follow the NEC requirements when performing any electrical work. Here are some specific NEC requirements that are relevant to wiring a small house. Article 210 covers branch circuits. Article 220 covers load calculations. Article 250 covers grounding and bonding. Article 300 covers wiring methods. Article 310 covers conductors for general wiring. Article 404 covers switches. Article 406 covers receptacles. Article 410 covers lighting fixtures. Article 547 covers agricultural buildings. Article 700 covers emergency systems. Article 701 covers legally required standby systems. Here are some examples of how to apply the NEC to your project. When wiring a bedroom, you must install arc fault circuit interrupters, or RFCIs, to protect against arcing faults, as per NEC 210.12. When wiring a bathroom, you must install ground fault circuit interrupters, or GFCIs, to protect against electric shock, as per NEC 210.8. When installing a new outlet, you must use a tamper-resistant receptacle, as per NEC 406.12, if it is located in a dwelling unit. When installing a smoke detector, you must follow the requirements of NEC 760. Here's more on grounding and bonding. Grounding and bonding are two important safety measures that help to protect against electric shock. Grounding provides a path for fault current to flow back to the source, which trips the circuit breaker and energizes the circuit. Bonding connects all metal parts of the electrical system together to create a low impedance path for fault current. The NEC requires that all electrical systems be properly grounded and bonded. Here are some specific NEC requirements for grounding and bonding. A grounding electrode system must be installed, as per NEC 250.50. The grounding electrode system must be connected to the electrical panel with a grounding electrode conductor, as per NEC 250.66. All metal parts of the electrical system must be bonded together with bonding jumpers, as per NEC 250.92. Ground fault circuit interrupters, or GFCIs, must be installed in areas where there is a risk of electric shock, as per NEC 210.8. Here's more on wiring methods. There are a variety of wiring methods that can be used for electrical installations. The most common wiring methods are non-metallic sheath cable, or NM cable, also known as Romex, electrical metallic tubing, or EMT conduit, and rigid metal conduit, or RMC. Non-metallic sheath cable, or NM cable, is the most common wiring method for residential wiring. It is relatively inexpensive and easy to install. However, it is not suitable for use in damp or wet locations. Electrical metallic tubing, or EMT conduit, is a metal conduit that is used to protect wiring. It is more expensive than non-metallic sheath cable, or NM cable, but it is more durable and can be used in damp or wet locations. Rigid metal conduit, or RMC, is a heavy-duty metal conduit that is used for underground wiring and other applications where the wiring needs to be protected from damage. It is the most expensive wiring method, but it is also the most durable. The NEC specifies the types of wiring methods that are allowed for different applications. For example, non-metallic sheath cable, or NM cable, is not allowed in damp or wet locations as per NEC 334.10. Electrical metallic tubing, or EMT conduit, is allowed in damp or wet locations as per NEC 358.10. Here's more on conductor selection. Conductors are the wires that carry electricity. The NEC specifies the types of conductors that are allowed for different applications. The most common types of conductors are copper and aluminum. Copper is a better conductor of electricity than aluminum, but it is also more expensive. Aluminum is less expensive than copper, but it is not as good of a conductor of electricity. The NEC specifies the ampacity of conductors. The ampacity is the amount of current that a conductor can safely carry. The ampacity of a conductor depends on the size of the conductor, the type of insulation, and the temperature rating. The NEC also specifies the voltage drop of conductors. Voltage drop is the decrease in voltage that occurs when electricity flows through a conductor. The voltage drop should be kept to a minimum to ensure that electrical equipment operates properly. Here's some information to help calculate load. Calculating the electrical load of a house is an important step in determining the size of the electrical service and the number of circuits that are needed. The electrical load is the total amount of power that is consumed by all of the electrical devices in the house. The NEC specifies the methods for calculating the electrical load of a house. The basic steps for calculating the electrical load of a house are as follows. Firstly, determine the general lighting load. The general lighting load is the load that is required for lighting all of the rooms in the house. The NEC specifies the minimum lighting load for different types of occupancies. Secondly, determine the small appliance load. The small appliance load is the load that is required for small appliances such as toasters, coffee makers, and microwave ovens. The NEC requires that at least two 20-amp small appliance circuits be installed in the kitchen. Thirdly, determine the laundry load. The laundry load is the load that is required for the washing machine and dryer. The NEC requires that at least one 20-amp laundry circuit be installed. Fourthly, determine the appliance loads. The appliance loads are the loads that are required for large appliances such as ranges, dryers, air conditioners, and water heaters. The NEC specifies the methods for calculating the appliance loads. Fifthly, calculate the total load. The total load is the sum of the general lighting load, the small appliance load, the laundry load, and the appliance loads. Once you have calculated the total load, you can determine the size of the electrical service that is needed. The electrical service is the amount of power that is supplied to the house from the utility company. The electrical service should be large enough to handle the total load of the house. These standards of the NEC can be found in Article 220.